What if a giant solar flare hit Earth? Wow, we've got a good one today. Welcome back to Hypotheticals, everyone. I am Stickman, and I haven't done this in a while, so bear with me, please. Today, we're talking about solar flares and solar storms. If you didn't know, the sun is pretty dangerous. Who would have thought? The sun, just like Earth, has its own weather system. The flaming ball of gas can produce things called solar storms, which are eruptions of electromagnetic radiation from the sun's atmosphere. These can then lead to solar flares, which can travel out over the solar system and impact it in various ways. They can also hit Earth, which has happened in the past and continues to happen today, and sometimes their impacts can be huge. So what would happen if a monstrous solar flare hit Earth? Let's dive in. The first thing you need to know about the sun is that, just like Earth, it has its own magnetic field. The way it's produced doesn't really matter for what we're talking about, but you just need to know that it has one. The second thing you need to know, and I already mentioned this briefly, is that the sun actually has an atmosphere, but not the way you think. There's obviously no breathable air on the sun. Scientists just refer to the sun's outer shell as its atmosphere, and this is where solar flares occur. Look, I know I'm throwing a lot of info at you at once, just to hang with me for a second, okay? I promise it'll make sense in a second. There's a lot of complex stuff that goes into making solar flares, so let's simplify. Basically, solar flares occur when the sun's magnetic field twists around itself and energy builds up. It then breaks through the sun's atmosphere and is released in the form of electromagnetic radiation. And this is when they can become a threat to Earth, if timed right or very wrong. The solar flare could travel through space and make direct contact with Earth, but we'll get to that more in a bit. Much like storms here on Earth, solar flares can be given various ratings based on their strength. The weakest solar flares are known as A-class flares, while the strongest are known as X-class flares. These X-class flares can actually vary a lot in strength though, so let's say a really super strong one hits Earth. What would happen? Lucky for us, we've already got an example. It's time to talk about the Carrington event. The Carrington event is the largest solar storm event ever observed to have impacted Earth. On September 1st, 1859, astronomer Richard Carrington was observing sunspots on the sun when he was suddenly blinded by a white light, which lasted about 5 minutes. This turned out to be a coronal mass ejection, or CME, and it was headed straight toward Earth. Before we continue the story though, let's talk about the difference between solar flares and CMEs. I promise it'll be quick. Solar flares are typically small bursts of electromagnetic radiation. Meanwhile, CMEs are much bigger bursts of plasma and magnetic field that come from the sun's atmosphere. They also typically travel slower than solar flares. Got it? Okay, good. Let's get back to the story. About 17 hours after Carrington observed this flash of light, some really weird stuff began happening on Earth. For one, telegraph systems freaked out and stopped working around the world. Meanwhile, the northern lights, which are caused by solar activity hitting the Earth's magnetic field and are usually confined to the poles, were seen as far south as the tropics. That's not supposed to happen, like ever. The good news is that this massive CME hit Earth at a time when technology wasn't as prevalent as it is today. But what if something like the Carrington event hit Earth in 2023? Let's get to the real reason why we're here. Okay, let's set the scene. You're looking at the sun one day through a telescope and you see a really bright flash of light. It's a CME heading straight for Earth. It hits one day later. The impacts are monumental. Satellites in Earth's orbit, which are used for worldwide communication, shut down. Computers and phones could be damaged if it were strong enough. GPS tech wouldn't function. Car batteries could stop working. In short, if the electromagnetic radiation from the CME was strong enough, it could fry transformers, our phones and laptops, navigation systems, and lots of other stuff we rely on daily. It would be very, 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 very bad. I'm about to simplify a lot, but there's a reason why this happens. When CMEs hit Earth, they throw out an electromagnetic pulse, or an EMP. This pulse produces enough electricity to override lots of different tech. However, there is some good news. There's a solution to avoid all of this damage. It's called turning things off. Electromagnetic energy can't fry circuits if there's no electrical current running through them. So while your phone might be damaged by the CME, and your car might not start, transformers and electrical grids should be totally fine if we turn them off in time. In other words, we shouldn't have any super widespread power outages for long periods of time if we're smart about things. Instead, we'd avoid lots of damage by cutting power until the CME passes. And of course, we can detect massive events like this in advance. NASA and plenty of other space nerds have their eyes on the sun all the time. If we see something big happening, chances are the worst effects will be avoided. Also, it's important to note that electrical engineers know about CMEs too, so they know what to do in these situations. Basically, what I'm trying to say is don't go freaking out about a big CME just yet. There are plenty of other things we need to worry about first. And who knows, if one hits and the northern lights come south, we may get one heck of a light show. That's all I've got for this hypothetical. If you enjoyed, feel free to like and subscribe. I'm also live on TikTok, Instagram Reels, and YouTube Shorts with some other content, so if you're interested, check that out. Links are in the description. Finally, if you've got an idea for a video, feel free to leave it in the comments. Thank you for watching. I'll see you next time.